The Perks of Being a Wallflower, set in 1991. I have to say from the beginning, this is a classic case of being almost entirely put off by the poster. Have you seen the poster for The Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Yes, this is where Emma has her... Well, she's kind of leaning...
Here's a very small version of it. Emma is sort of leaning against Logan Lerman, and then behind them is a third person who is sort of leaning in as well. And it's one of those things in which, when you first look at it, it's got these kind of primary pastel shades, and it has been airbrushed to within an inch of its life, to the point that nobody in it looks even vaguely human. In fact, it looks like some kind of weird Stepford Wives type horror movie, with the kind of leaning, and then you realise that the guy behind, with the incredibly airbrushed face, leaning in, slightly smiling, who at first glance looks like, I mean, the guy in the front looks like David out of AI, but the guy behind him, you then realise, is of course your man from We Need to Talk About Kevin, but now looking like a robot. And it's one of those really bizarre things. I think when they put that poster together, did they put it together thinking it looks lovely, it looks quirky, it looks sweet, it looks jovial, it looks engaging, it looks teenage, or did they put it together thinking, let's put a poster together that will really creep people out because it is so weird and so freaky that nobody in that picture looks even vaguely human? I am inclined to think that it may be the latter, that it may have been done on purpose, because I find it very hard to believe that you could have arrived at that image by mistake. As it happens, the film itself fits in with the latter reading of that poster rather than the former, because the film is not perky, jolly, sweet, isn't it great being a teenager? Far from it. The story is your central character, Charlie, is a geek who spent time in a psychiatric institution. He's paralysingly withdrawn. He goes to high school where he finds everything incredibly difficult. And after the first thing that happens is his English teacher realises that he's a smart guy, and realises that actually if he can just draw him out, this is Paul Rudd actually in a very understated performance, realises he's a smart guy, realises that his main problem is he has to overcome his shyness. He's then taken in by the kind of the outsiders, by the Heathers, by the strange sort of weird misfit lot who are a step brother and sister, played rather well by Ezra Miller, he of We Need to Talk About Kevin, and Emma Watson, who has got a fantastically convincing non-British accent, and they welcome him into their island of misfits.
Hey, everyone! Everybody! Everyone? Raise your glasses to Charlie.
What did I do?
You didn't do anything. We just want to toast our new friend. You see things, and you understand. You're a wallflower. What is it? What's wrong?
I didn't think anyone noticed me.
Well, we didn't think there was anyone cool left to meet. So, come on, everyone. To Charlie.
To Charlie. Welcome to the island of misfit toys.
No, it says something...
Is that Emma at the end?
Yeah. It says something important about the film, that when you've got one of the leads from Harry Potter and one of the leads from Benjamin Sniddlegrass and one of the leads from We Need to Talk About Kevin, and you actually don't think of any of those things whilst you're watching the film. For the purpose of watching the film, you just believe in each of those characters individually. It's directed by Stephen Chbosky, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, based on his own book, and he has a very good sense of the way in which being an alienated teenager and listening to certain forms of pop music and reading certain books and believing in certain ideas can be overpoweringly important and baffling and alienating and confusing all at the same time. I mean, this is in many ways an interesting companion piece to liberal arts because it's seen entirely from the eyes of the young leads, and it looks at the world in their terms, which in many ways is the kind of terms that the Elizabeth Olsen character will be looking at the world at in liberal arts, and from which the central character in liberal arts is so essentially alienated. There is one plot hole, a peculiar plot hole. It's set in the 1990s, but one of the things they do is they talk an awful lot about music and the Smiths and how much they love the Smiths. And at one point, Emma Watson's character talks about that her great dream is that she will see her true love for the first time while somebody's playing Pearly Dewdrops Drops, Pearly, the Cotter twins. And yet there's a central conceit in the movie, which is that none of them have ever heard of Heroes by David Bowie. And when it comes on the radio, they all go, this is amazing, what is this song? Which is a peculiar thing because you think if you were listening to any of that music, the idea that you wouldn't know Heroes is quite peculiar. However, it reminded me whilst watching the film of, have you ever seen Christiana F? the German film about drug addiction and teenagers?
No.
Okay, in which David Bowie features, and it's a very interesting film. But there is a brilliant sequence in that film when it suddenly cuts to this group of teenagers running through a shopping mall, and it's the beginning of Heroes, which is this great pulsating, throbbing, weird sound. I mean, Heroes still sounds like the sound of the future even now, and it takes quite a lot for a movie to be able to take Heroes once it's been used like that in something like Christiana F. and get away with doing it again as the music that you would listen to whilst driving through a tunnel. But in fact, it says a lot for the movie that it does get away with it, even despite the fact that as you're watching it, you're thinking, I can't believe that these characters haven't heard this record before. And it's, there's that thing about the moment that you know that a movie is working is when a movie makes a mistake and it doesn't matter. And there's some directors used to do this to actually Hitchcock apparently used to do it. I know that Friedkin's done it. You'd put a deliberate mistake in a film. I'll give you an example. I'm sorry to mention The Exorcist. There's a scene in The Exorcist when Father Karras reaches out with his right hand to turn on a tape recorder, and you see the left hand turning the tape recorder on. It's a howling error, but it's put there and no one notices it, and it's put there as a gag, which is you don't notice this. And I was halfway through watching Perks of Being a Wallflower thinking I must actually be convinced by these people and I must be immersed in their world, because that honking plot error plus the fact that you're usurping a record which you've got to work really hard to have the right to do is not putting me off. I think the key to it is that the performances of Ezra Miller really is a great talent. Lynn Ramsey said this was the phrase she used, she said he was terrifyingly intelligent. When she first cast him in We Need to Talk About Kevin, she said it was it. He was just like, he'd walk on set and he was like electrically intelligent. And he does have some of that here. I've read a couple of reviews which have been a bit sniffy about his performance, and I think they're completely wrong. I think he does have a kind of mesmeric presence on screen. And again, the film, it's not without its flaws, but if you were, and I'm not, clearly, if you were, a slightly angsty teenager who did indeed love the Cocteaus and love Bowie and all that stuff, you'd think, wow, they made this movie specially for me. James King loved it, and I think that's a good indication. But I liked it very much, and hats off to Emma Watson, because her accent is absolutely flawless. And I remember in the past, people had said that they thought I'm looking at you, had said that they thought that perhaps she was the weak link in some of the Harry Potter movies, but I disagree. She's found her forte, and Ezra Miller is absolutely terrific, and I think it all comes together very nicely, and they get away with playing heroes.